Confucius, and The Cultivation of the Person. Tien Cong Tran, Ph.D. Section 1. What is the cultivation of the person? In Christianity there is baptism. To be admitted to life full of the way, a child, or heathen must be baptized. For what sin is he baptized? It is the ancestral sin. Adam and Eve committed the sin of eating a forbidden fruit to know the good and evil. Before eating the forbidden fruit, they lived in Eden. After they had eaten the forbidden fruit, God drove them out of Eden. They were driven out of Eden because they knew the good and evil. To know the good is to know the way. To know the evil is to know material things. After they had eaten the forbidden fruit, they felt ashamed, they took leaves to cover themselves up. Now they had desire. To have desire is to want things. Desire or wanting things enters the nature of man. Man always in his heart embraces desire or wants things. Ancestral sin indicates this human condition. Baptism is cleaning the ancestral sin. Cleaning the ancestral sin is cleaning desire of attachment to the material world. To clean is to clean worldly dust. John Baptist baptized by water. But Jesus came and baptized by Spirit. Spirit is the way. To baptize by Spirit is to baptize by the way. The way is brought into one's heart to replace desire. To be baptized is to throw away desire and shoulder the way. It is so because what profit would there be for one to gain the whole world and forfeit his life? In Christianity there is also the Eucharist. To eat the body and to drink blood of Jesus is to welcome the way into one's heart. Jesus is the presence of the way. To eat his body and to drink his blood is the living image of welcoming the way into one's heart to replace desire or craving for this world. The cultivation of the person, which Confucius speaks of, also aims at welcoming the way into one's heart. However, because, according to Confucius, the way always lies hidden in one's heart, the cultivation of the person is, more correctly, to brighten the way hidden in one's heart. The doctrine of the mean says, hence the superior man may not neglect the cultivation of himself. Wishing to cultivate himself, he may not neglect to serve his parents. In order to serve his parents, he may not neglect to acquire a knowledge of men. In order to know men, he may not dispense with the knowledge of heaven. To know heaven is to know the way. If one wishes to cultivate himself, he has to know the way, because the cultivation aims at becoming the place of the appearance of the way. The cultivation of the person depends on the treading in the way. The cultivation of the person is the first and basic of all other works. From the Son of Heaven to the mass of the people, all must consider the cultivation of the person the root of everything besides. It cannot be, when the root is neglected, that the branches are well ordered. It never has been the case that what was of great importance has been slightly cared for and, at the same time, what was of slight importance has been greatly cared for. The cultivation must be fundamental and hence we cannot slightly care for it. When we speak of the cultivation of the person, we virtually admit that our person is not yet a true person. Our person is not yet a person because it does not harbor the way but profit. We are born to love to harbor profit, even though we value the way more than profit. Human condition stands in front of this dilemma: man does not follow what is precious but what he loves. Man likes straw more than pure gold, because he sees straw as pure gold and pure gold as straw. Section 2. The purpose of the cultivation of the person, the superior man. The purpose of the cultivation of the person or of learning is to become a superior man or, better, a sage. 1. The way as origin of the superior man. A. The superior man and the way. The word superior man originally indicates prince, son of a king, a ruler at the rank of king and lord. Then superior man is used to indicate man who attained to the way, especially a ruler who attained to the way. Mencius sometimes used great man to replace superior man. The master said, what the superior man seeks is the way and not food. If he farms, hunger lies therein; if he learns, an official's salary lies therein. What the superior man worries about is the way and not poverty. To attain to the way, the superior man must know the distinction of two realities, the way and food or the material world. The way is contacted by mind and the material world is contacted by sensual desire. The superior man must know that men daily live by desires, that means they attach to the material world. The superior man must abandon the material world or desire and return to the way. Besides the material world, there is the way. However, the superior man must know that men are not gods, they must live in the material world. Men cannot escape from the material world. They are able only not to attach to the material world. To attach to the material world is to consider it as the only reality. Besides the material world, other things are only ephemeral and elusive. Not to attach to the material world is to recognize that besides the material world there is another reality. This reality can be named the way. The superior man knows that there are two different realities, material and the way. He also recognizes that it is the way, and not material, that constitutes the essence of man. Men need to live with both these realities. Hence the superior man must harmonize them. The harmony of them is called the mean. The superior man must follow the mean. B. The superior man and the inferior man. The superior man is different from the inferior man. The inferior man lives by desires or attaches to the material world. Men ordinarily live as inferior men. The superior man returns to the way and brings it into the material world. The superior man is conversant with righteousness, the inferior man conversant with profit. Righteousness indicates the way and profit indicates things. The superior man lives in the realm of the way and the inferior man lives in the realm of things. The superior man aims at attaining to what is up above, the inferior man aims at attaining to what is down below. What is up above indicates the way and what is down below things. The superior man is all-embracing and not partial. The inferior man is partial and not all-embracing. The way is common for all things and hence far-reaching. A thing is only itself and so partial and near. The superior man is like the way and the inferior man is like a thing. The superior man thinks of virtue, the inferior man thinks of land. The superior man thinks of law, the inferior man thinks of favors. Virtue and law indicate the way, land and favors the material world. The superior man is satisfied and composed, the inferior man is always full of distress. One of the feelings the way brings is satisfaction and composedness. Why is it so? Because it is so. The inferior man attaches to things and always fears that they will be taken away. The way is in the heart of each person, it cannot be taken away. Does anyone fear that his way will be taken away? The Master said, the superior man may not know small matters but can undertake great matters, the inferior man may undertake small matters but cannot know great matters. Great matter is the way, the superior man undertakes or practices the way, small matter is a thing, the superior man may know little about things. The inferior man may know a lot about small matters or the material world because he pays attention to them but does not know the way and does not undertake or practice it. The Master said, the superior man helps others become good men, he does not help them become bad men. The inferior man does the opposite. Good is the way and bad is desire of the material world. The Master said, what the superior man seeks is in himself. What the inferior seeks is in others. The way is within, what the superior man seeks in himself is the way. What the inferior man seeks in others is the material world that they may give him. 2. The superior man and the essence of man. We have just said that the superior man must follow the mean or the harmony between the way and material. If it is so, why do we say that the superior man seeks is the way and not food? If he follows the mean, it seems that he must seek both the way and food. The way appears so that things appear. In other words, things appear in the light of the way. If we forget the way, it can happen that things appear, but do not appear as they appear in the light of the way. Hence there are two ways of the appearance of things, they appear in the way, and they appear not in the way. Their appearance not in the way can happen to two ways, they appear as, by chance, or not as they appear in the way. Ordinarily when a thing appears not in the way, it tends to appear not as, or at least not completely as, it appears in the way. For example, the way is benevolence, a benevolent man is a true man, and an unbenevolent man is not a true man. However, nobody lives completely in benevolence, and nobody lives completely in unbenevolence. The doctrine of the mean says, the way of the superior man reaches wide and far, and yet is secret. Common men and women, however ignorant, may intermeddle with the knowledge of it. Yet in its utmost reaches, there is what even the sage does not know. Common men and women, however much below the ordinary standard of character, can carry into practice a part of it, yet in its utmost reaches, there is that even the sage is not able to carry it in practice. Therefore, the return to the way is necessary. The nearer to the way we are, the truer things appear to us. We should take note that, if there is no truth, by what do we live? Without the truth or the way, according to Mencius, men are not far from animals. 3. The sage. A sage is a man who has attained to the way and to the perfection of the way, he is the perfect one, and a man who is an example for the whole world. Kings Yao and Shun are considered sages. Confucius did not dare to claim to be a sage, however, Mencius praised Confucius that from the birth of mankind till now, there never has been one greater than Confucius. In the whole world, it is only the sage who possesses enough clear hearing, bright sight, far understanding and broad knowledge to exercise rule, who is enough magnanimous, generous, benign, and mild to exercise forbearance, who is enough impulsive, energetic, firm, and enduring to keep his duty, who is enough fasting, grave, in the mean to command reverence, who is enough cultivated, reasonable, concentrative and clearly searching to exercise discrimination. he is all-embracing and vast, deep, and fountain-like, and sends forth his virtue in due time. All-embracing and vast, he is like heaven. Deep and fountain-like, he is like an abyss. When he appears, the people all reverence him. When he speaks, the people all believe him. When he acts, the people all are pleased with him. Therefore, his fame overspreads the Middle Kingdom, and extends to barbarous tribes. Wherever ships and carriages reach, wherever the strength of man penetrates, wherever the heavens overshadow, and the earth sustains, wherever the sun and the moon shine, wherever frosts and dews fall, all who have blood and breath honor and love him. Hence he is said to be the equal of heaven. It is only the man possessed of the most entire sincerity that can exist under heaven, who can adjust the great invariable relations of mankind, establish the great fundamental virtues of humanity, and know the transforming and nurturing operations of heaven and earth. Shall this man have any being beyond himself on whom he depends? Call him man in his ideal, how earnest is he? Call him an abyss, how deep is he? Call him heaven, how vast is he? Who can know him, but he who is indeed quick in apprehension, clear in discernment, of far-reaching intelligence, and all-embracing knowledge, possessing all heavenly virtues? The Master said, "How dare I claim to be a sage or a benevolent man? But to learn the way insatiably and to teach it to others indefatigably, that may be said of me, that is all." The Master said, "How lofty Shun and you were! Though they were in possession of the empire, it was nothing to them." Mencius said, "The compass and the square are utensils to produce squares and circles." In the same way, the sage is the example of human relations. He who as a sovereign wishes to fulfill the duties of a sovereign and he who as a minister wishes to fulfill the duties of a minister have to imitate Yao and Shun. Not to serve one's sovereign in the way Shun served Yao is not to respect one's sovereign. Not to govern the people in the way Yao governed his is to harm the people. Mencius said, "A sage is the teacher of 100 generations." Section 3. 3 First Virtues of the Cultivation of the Person. The first 3 virtues of the cultivation of the person are fondness of learning, vigor to practice and shame. The Master said, "To be fond of learning is to be near to knowledge. To practice with vigor is to be near to benevolence. To possess the feeling of shame is to be near to courage." He who knows these 3 things knows how to cultivate himself. 1. Fondness of learning. Everybody has to learn, including Confucius. The Master said, "I am not one who was born in the possession of knowledge. I am one who fond of antiquity, and earnestly seeks it." Confucius himself learned all his life. The Master said, "At 15, I bent my mind on learning, at 30, I was established, at 40, I was free of doubts, at 50, I knew the decree of heaven, at 60, my ears became obedient, at 70, I was able to follow my heart's desire, without overstepping the rules of propriety." Fondness of learning is considering learning as joy. The Master said, "If a man in the morning hears the way, he may die in the evening without regret." The first statement of the Analects is, to learn something and regularly practice it, is it not a joy? In order to learn, one must find a method. The Master said, "Learn as if you could not reach your object and were always fearing also lest you lose it." Zahia said, "He who each day recognizes something he has not yet, and each month does not forget what he has attained to, may be said to love learning. The master said, the superior man, in eating, does not seek satiety, in dwelling, does not seek comfort, is earnest in action and careful in speech, and goes to men of the way for rectification. Such a man may be said indeed to love learning. The master said, in a hamlet of 10 families, there must be found one sincere and truthful as I am, but not as fond of learning as I am. Confucius praised Yan Hui as fond of learning. Duke I asked, which of your disciples loves learning? Confucius replied, there was Yan Hui, who loved learning. He never raised his anger, he did not repeat a mistake. Unfortunately, he died young. Now there is not such one. I have not heard of any who loves learning as he did. Tien Cong Tran asked, which of your disciples loves learning? Confucius replied, there was Yan Hui who loved learning. Unfortunately, he died young. Now there is no one. The master said, the one who listens to my discourse without ever becoming weary is Hui. The master said, once I talked with Hui for a whole day, he did not ask anything, as if he were stupid. When he retired, I observed him in private and found that he was able to illustrate my teachings. Hui is not stupid at all. Learning is necessary, to love virtues without being learned is also dangerous. The master said, have you heard the 6 words and their 6 latent defects? You replied, I haven't. Be seated. I will tell them to you. To love benevolence and not to love learning, the latent defect is foolishness. To love wisdom and not to love learning, the latent defect is looseness. To love truthfulness and not to love learning, the latent defect is harmfulness. To love straightforwardness and not to love learning, the latent defect is rudeness. To love courage and not to love learning, the latent defect is rebelliousness. To love firmness and not to love learning, the latent defect is recklessness. But we need to distinguish 2 kinds of learning, learning of material things and learning of the way. Learning of things is not bad at all, but it is not learning of the way. Today we have a great knowledge of things, but it is not a knowledge of the way. The cultivation of the person is learning of the way, a bright virtue hidden in man's heart. To learn is to brighten bright virtue. 2. Practice with vigor. The way resides in resting in the highest goodness. And the highest goodness indicates the peaceful dwelling of the people. Hence to learn the way aims not only at knowing the way but also at bringing peaceful dwelling to the people. In other words, to learn the way aims not only at knowing the way but also at practicing the way. The voice of the way asks for the realization of the way, that means action. The rulers, following the examples of Yao and Shun, must govern by the way. Confucius himself practiced the way by teaching it ceaselessly and indefatigably. The master said, to think silently and store up in my mind, to learn without satiety and to teach others indefatigably, are these present in me. It is in looking at practice, we know whether a man has learned the way or not. As we have just quoted above, Confucius talked about Yan Hui. I observed him in private and found that he was able to illustrate my teachings. The Viscount of Wei left him tyrant Zhou, the Viscount of Ji became a slave on account of him, Pai Kan lost his life for remonstrating with him. Confucius commented, the yin had 3 men of benevolence. Practice with vigor is clearly expressed in the statement that the way is loved more than life. I like life, and I also like righteousness. If I cannot keep the two together, I will let life go and choose righteousness. 3. Being ashamed. Shame is, as we have said, the feeling of conscience, of the knowing distinction between good and evil. A man without shame is he who does not know the way, much less the practice of the way. If without the way a man is not far from a beast, a man without shame is like an animal. If, in our time of technology, the world is governed by men who do not know shame, how can we tout our civilization? Section 4. The ways of the cultivation of the person. A. Small ways. Besides 3 virtues we have just said, the realization of the cultivation of the person in life is spoken of in many aspects. 1. Setting of the purpose. The road of the great learning is to brighten bright virtue, to renovate the people and to rest on the highest goodness. The point where to rest being known, the object of the pursuit is then determined. And, that being determined, tranquility may be attained to. To that tranquility there will succeed peacefulness. In that peacefulness there may be careful deliberation. And that deliberation will be followed by the attainment of the desired end. The purpose is resting on the highest goodness. The highest goodness is the way. The cultivation of the person takes the way as the highest goodness and the resting place. 2. Self-examination. Zhengzi said, "Every day I examine myself in 3 counts. In undertaking business to others, have I failed to do my best? In associating with my friends, have I failed to be trustful? In transmitting something, have I failed to practice it myself?" The Master said, "On seeing a worthy man, think of equaling him, on seeing an unworthy man, look within and examine yourself." 3. Rectification of faults. The Master said, when he the superior man makes a mistake, he is not afraid to correct it. There are 2 realities, that means we live with 2 realities. Therefore, if we are sometimes inclined to the material world, that is not strange. The superior man knows this and is willing to overcome it. 4. Self-confidence. The Master said, if a sovereign employs me, in the course of 12 months, things will be brought to a satisfactory state, and after 3 years, things will be accomplished. When under siege in Kuang, the Master said, King Wen being dead, is not culture invested here in me? If heaven had intended to exterminate this culture, I, a future mortal, would not have been so involved in this culture. If heaven does not intend to exterminate this culture, what can the men of Kuang do to me? The Master said, heaven has endowed me with virtue. What can Huan Tui do to me? 5. Peaceful in poverty and joyful with the way. The Master said, a scholar, who sets his heart in seeking the way, is ashamed of poor clothes and poor food, is not worth discoursing with. The Master said, what the superior man seeks is the way and not food. If he farms, hunger lies therein, if he learns, an official's salary lies therein. What the superior man worries about is the way and not poverty. 6. Keeping one's duty. The Master said, if you are not in a certain office, do not concern yourself with its affairs. Zhengzi said, the superior man does not think beyond his office, Zolu said, when Duke Huan killed Prince Chu, Xiao Hu died for the prince but Quan Chung failed to do so. He added, in this case did he fall short of benevolence? The master said, it was due to Quan Chung that Duke Huan was able to assemble the feudal lords 9 times without using war chariots. Who can compare with him in benevolence? Who can compare with him in benevolence? The superior man does what is proper to the position in which he does not desire to go beyond this. In a position of wealth and honor, he does what is proper to a position of wealth and honor. In a poor and low position, he does what is proper to a poor and low position. Situated among barbarous tribes, he does what is proper to a situation among barbarous tribes. In a position of sorrow and difficulty, he does what is proper to a position of sorrow and difficulty. The superior man can find himself in no situation in which he is not himself. Mencius said, men must be decided on what they will not do, and then they are able to act with vigor in what they ought to do. b. The main way. There are many small ways, more than the 6 we have just mentioned above. But there is a main way that is the foundation of the small ones. The main way is the way. But how is it possible that the main way guides the small ones? We have clearly distinguished 2 domains, the way and profit, material, money, this world. Profit goes with desire, greed. So, to return to the way is to abandon desire of this world. This world is lying and evil. Jesus fasted 40 days and 40 nights and he was hungry. The tempter approached him and said to him, if you are the Son of God, command these stones become loaves of bread. He said in reply, it is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes forth from the mouth of God. Then the devil took him to the holy city and made him stand on the parapet of the temple, and said to him, if you are Son of God, throw yourself down. For it is written, he will command his angels concerning you and with their hands they will support you, lest you dash your foot against a stone. Jesus answered him, again it is written, you shall not put the Lord, your God, to the test. Then the devil took him up to a very high mountain, and showed him all the kingdoms of the world in their magnificence, and said to him, all these I shall give to you, if you will prostrate yourself and worship me. At this, Jesus said to him, get away, Satan. It is written, the Lord, your God, shall you worship and him alone shall you serve. This world is evil and greedy. People often submit themselves to evil and greed. The Buddha tells destroy desire. There are only 2 ways, the way and desire, and we are able to choose only one of 2 ways, we are not able to serve both masters. This world is sin, lying, suffering, the way is holy, justice, gratification. The master said, the book of poetry has 300 poems, but they may be summed up in one phrase, non-deviating thought. Non-deviating thought is sincere thought, which does not follow profit but follows the way. Deviating belongs to profit and non-deviating or sincerity belongs to the way. The book of poetry teaches us to abandon profit and to follow the way. It is the same of the 4 books. The superior man chooses the way and abandons profit. This is the main way that guides small ones. The superior man examines all things in the point of view of the way and not of profit. Let us firmly grasp this idea and read the 4 books in this light. Mencius said, To nourish the mind there is nothing better than to make the desires few. Here is a man whose desires are few, in some things he may not be able to keep his heart, but they will be few. Here is a man whose desires are many, in some things he may be able to keep his heart, but they will be few. Section 5. What is the object of learning? To learn is to learn the way. But where can they learn the way? Confucius talks about language and 6 arts, i.e., propriety, music, archery, charioteering, language and arithmetic. He also talks about the book of poetry, the book of rites, the book of change and the book of history. The essential thing is to learn the way therein. To learn aims not only at acquiring an amount of knowledge in order to make one's living but, and mainly, also at cultivating one's virtue. The Master said, "Set your heart on the way, adhere to virtue, be accorded with benevolence, take pleasure in the arts." To learn the book of poetry brings sincerity. The Master said, "The book of poetry has 300 poems, but they may be summoned up in one phrase, non-deviating thought." The Master said, "Inspire yourself with poetry, establish yourself with rites, perfect yourself with music." Tien Cong asked Bo Yu, "Have you heard anything different?" Bo Yu replied, "No, I have not. One day my father was standing by himself, I hastened to cross the court. He said, 'Have you learned poetry?' I replied, 'I haven't.' 'If you don't learn poetry, you don't know how to speak.' So, I retired and learned poetry. Another day when he was again standing by himself, I hastened to cross the court. He said, 'Have you learned rites?' I replied, 'I haven't.' 'If you do not learn rites, you do not know how to establish yourself.' So, I retired and learned rites. I have heard these 2 things. Confucius loved the music that was beautiful and good. The Master said of the music of the sage King Shun, exceedingly beautiful and exceedingly good. He said of the music of King Wu, exceedingly beautiful, but not exceedingly good. The Master said, "They say propriety, propriety, do they merely refer to jade and silk? They say music, music, do they merely refer to bells and drums? There is good music and there is bad music. There is the music that leads us to the way and there is the music that drives us far from the way." The book of change seems to be very important. The Master said, "Grant me a few more years so that at 50 I may learn change, and I will be free from major errors." Generally, reading books and listening to music must be realized with the spirit of finding the way in them. In the same manner, writing a book or composing a song must be realized in the spirit of expressing the way in them. There is propriety even in archery, fishing, and hunting. The Master said, "There is no contention between the superior men. If an exception may be cited, it is perhaps in archery. They cup their hands and yield the way to each other as they go up and go down, and they drink. Even in contention, they are superior men." The Master said, "In archery the point lies not in piercing the hide, for the reason that strength varies from man to man. That is the way of the ancients. Contention is about hitting the target, not about strength." The Master used a fishing line, but not a net. He shot at flying birds, but not at roosting ones. Generally, every action should be realized in the spirit of the way. To learn is to learn the way amid things and affairs in this world. That is the middle way. Nowadays the books Confucius used contain many points which are strange to us. However, we have many other places to choose. There are the teachings of Jesus and of the Buddha, there are the profound ideas of many other philosophers, too. The road to the way is widely open to us.